from all sides.
Hello and welcome to the Policy Times afternoon show. This is India Policy Show. This is a show where we do with University Tun Hussein on. This is a special show on the waste management and environment issues. Let me just quickly share a few points that recently 40 lakh Indian waste pickers from Mumbai and other urban cities are at risk because millions of face masks are being thrown on the streets or in the dustbins, and they are totally exposed, and there is high risk of having the infection, the COVID-19 infection there. So this has created a havoc and panic in India. And this is not just the case in India. Across the world, millions, in fact, billions of such face masks or PPEs are on the street or on the dustbins, exposing a higher level of risk. Today, we have an expert panel to discuss about the COVID-19 versus medical waste management, risk and remedies. Our moderator of the show today, Dr. Aslina, and this show is primarily sponsored and hosted by Policy Times and University Tun Hussein on the Center for Engineering, Faculty of Engineering and Built Environment. Dr. Aslina, over to you.
Okay, Assalamualaikum and very good afternoon to everyone. I'm Asina Abdul Kadir from UTH Malaysia. Thank you, Mr. Akram, for inviting me again as the moderator in the Policy Times show. As we all know, world recently have been concerned and shocked about the COVID-19 pandemic around the globe. So today we will be talking about one of the critical topics during this massive pandemic, which is medical waste versus COVID crisis, risk and remedy. I would like to appreciate all the distinguished experts here that spend their time to discuss on these important issues. We hope that all the viewers will clarify some vague information on the medical waste after watching the show today. But first, let me introduce our invited speakers. We have 4 invited experts, which are Dr. Ahmad H. Hills, Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad J.K. Bashir, Insinyur Ammar Muhammad Rashid, and Advocate Anis Soan. Okay, the first speaker is Dr. Ahmad H. Hills. He is Assistant Professor of Environmental Sciences from Palestine. He holds a PhD degree in Environmental Sciences from Alexandria University in 2015. Dr. Hills has worked as the Director of the Environmental Awareness Department at the Palestinian Environment Quality Authority for 13 years. Dr. Hills also worked as a consultant and researcher with a number of local NGOs and international organizations working in the field of water and environment, green economy, disaster risk reduction, and public health topics. Our second panel is Advocate Anis Soan from India. He is corporate lawyer by profession and environmentalist by passion. He is an indirect tax specialist with rich, versatile experience for about 39 years in industry, and thereafter he's also an independent consultant advising prestigious multinational companies and key Indian players in healthcare, pharmaceuticals, hospitals, contractors and manufacturers. So our third and fourth speaker is from Malaysia. Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad J.K. Bashir is the head of department at Environmental Engineering at University Tunku Abdul Rahman or Utah. He got his PhD in Environmental Engineering at USM. He is actively involved in environmental research and projects. Last but not least, Insinyur Ammar Muhammad Rashid is graduated in civil engineering. He became a self-made multidisciplinary entrepreneur. He is the managing director of AMR Environmental, a private consultant company based in Malaysia that provides a one-stop environmental solution for its clients. The company is currently serving the clinical waste treatment establishments in Malaysia. So without further ado, I would like to get into our topic. Rashid is graduated in civil engineering. He became a self-made multidisciplinary entrepreneur. He is the managing director of AMR Environmental, a private consulting company based in Malaysia that provides a one-stop environmental solution for its clients. At this moment, the company is currently serving the clinical waste treatment establishments in Malaysia. To prevent the dissemination so without further ado, I would like to get into our topic. Rashid is graduated in civil engineering. He became a self-made multidisciplinary entrepreneur. He He is the managing director of AMR Environmental and Practical India and Hospital Space in Malaysia. That provides one-stop environmental solution for its clients. The company is currently serving the clinical waste treatment as the national in Malaysia. So without further ado, I would like to get us to our topic. COVID-19 is related to simple impact of community and self on the secret entrepreneur. He is the managing director of AMR Environmental and Practical India and Hospital Space in Malaysia. That provides one-stop environmental solution for its clients. The company is currently serving the clinical waste treatment as the national in Malaysia. So without further ado, I would like to get us to our topic. COVID-19 is related to simple impact of community and self on the secret entrepreneur. He is the managing director of AMR Environmental and Practical India and Hospital Space in Malaysia. That provides one-stop environmental solution for its clients. The company is currently serving the clinical waste treatment as the national in Malaysia. So without further ado, I would like to get us to our topic. COVID-19 is related to simple impact of community and self on the secret entrepreneur. He is the managing director of AMR Environmental and Practical India and Hospital Space in Malaysia. That provides one-stop environmental solution for its clients. The company is currently serving the clinical waste treatment as the national in Malaysia. So without further ado, I would like to get us to our topic. COVID-19 is related to simple impact of community and self on the secret entrepreneur. He is the managing director of AMR Environmental and Practical India and Hospital Space in Malaysia. That provides one-stop environmental solution for its clients. The company is currently serving the clinical waste treatment as the national in Malaysia. So without further ado, I would like to get us to our topic. COVID-19 is related to simple impact of community and self on the secret entrepreneur. He is the managing director of AMR Environmental and Practical India and Hospital Space in Malaysia. That provides one-stop environmental solution for its clients. The company is currently serving the clinical waste treatment as the national in Malaysia. So without further ado, I would like to get us to our topic. COVID-19 is related to simple impact of community and self on the secret entrepreneur. He is the managing director of AMR Environmental and Practical India and Hospital Space in Malaysia. That provides one-stop environmental solution for its clients. The company is currently serving the clinical waste treatment as the national in Malaysia. So without further ado, I would like to get us to our topic. COVID-19 is related to simple impact of community and self on the secret entrepreneur. He is the managing director of AMR Environmental and Practical India and Hospital Space in Malaysia. That provides one-stop environmental solution for its clients. The company is currently serving the clinical waste treatment as the national in Malaysia. So without further ado, I would like to get us to our topic. COVID-19 is related to simple impact of community and self on the secret entrepreneur. He is the managing director of AMR Environmental and Practical India and Hospital Space in Malaysia. That provides one-stop environmental solution for its clients. The company is currently serving the clinical waste treatment as the national in Malaysia. So without further ado, I would like to get us to our topic. COVID-19 is related to simple impact of community and self on the secret entrepreneur. He is the managing director of AMR Environmental and Practical India and Hospital Space in Malaysia. That provides one-stop environmental solution for its clients. The company is currently serving the clinical waste treatment as the national in Malaysia. So without further ado, I would like to get us to our topic. COVID-19 is related to simple impact of community and self on the secret entrepreneur. He is the managing director of AMR Environmental and Practical India and Hospital Space in Malaysia. That provides one-stop environmental solution for its clients. The company is currently serving the clinical waste treatment as the national in Malaysia. So without further ado, I would like to get us to our topic. COVID-19 is related to simple impact of community and self on the secret entrepreneur. He is the managing director of AMR Environmental and Practical India and Hospital Space in Malaysia. That provides one-stop environmental solution for its clients. The company is currently serving the clinical waste treatment as the national in Malaysia. So without further ado, I would like to get us to our topic. COVID-19 is related to simple impact of community and self on
and whether those 80% are following all these norms or not, color coding, packing, sanitization, and then handing over in a segregated condition to the common biomedical waste energy operator? Answer is no. Now, what are the norms? Emission norms for common biomedical waste treating facility, because it requires heat, it emits gases. This is all process. This process, that environment cleaning room when patient is admitted. When we look at this process has been very well defined. But what about when patient is discharged or doctor removes all these PPE? How effectively this is done on ground? When we do not know 80% of the hospitals or clinical agencies are not registered. If 80% are not registered, then what do we do about this procedure? How do we apply this procedure? How do we enforce this procedure? And situation is no good in Bombay also. Bombay also almost, Delhi has about 55,000 beds in all hospitals and clinics. Bombay has about 3 lakh beds. So my concern at both places, Bombay and Delhi, the ratio of registered hospitals vis-a-vis unregistered is huge. So all this putting in place the system doesn't help unless you register everyone. It is not possible to check every organization manually or physically whether all this process is being followed or not. It has to be online and through integrated system, so that automatic reporting is there and automatic cross check is there, which is totally missing.
Yeah, I think immediate actions and also clear SOP as well as training should have been done to cater and also cope with these current issues. So what about in Palestine, Dr. Ahmed?
Okay, my voice is clear. You hear me?
Yes, Dr. Ahmed, please go.
Okay. Thank you so much for everybody, and thank you for inviting me to share you in this opportunity. And I hope the coming minutes will be benefit enough for everybody to exchange our experience and to increase our knowledge and to enhance our skills in handling of these big problems, worldwide problem or crisis. COVID-19 in Gaza Strip. I have or I would like to talk about some general information to imagine what is the accurate situation that we have live in now in the Gaza Strip. More than 2,200,000 people live in 387 square kilometer. If we divided the two numbers, that the result is 6,000 people live in each or every 1 square kilometer. It's one of the most crowded area in the world, and the political circumstances or the political issues that we live since 12 or more than 12 years ago is very unique, and the Israeli occupation by the closure of the border and the wars that challenged against the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip put big challenges on the shoulders of the Palestinian people in the Gaza, which complicated our let me say our
Dr. Ahmed, I'm just wondering about the movement control order in Palestine. Is it strict or how is it in Palestine? The movement control order.
Okay, but in Gaza Strip, as I know, and this is my area as I live, so I have an information to talk about. The economic situation is very deteriorated. So it complicated the work of the municipalities. We have no private sector here in Gaza Strip handling the waste or the medical waste handling as whole, and the responsible of the management of the medical waste and the COVID-19 as the new challenge that we face in the Gaza is the responsibility of the municipalities. But our municipalities suffered from the economic situation, and there is no enough fund to cover the staffs, the vehicles, the tracks, the tools, the chemical substances which used to the disinfection and sterilization process, and the issues become more and more complicated because of the situation that we live. But actually, I have to say that the current situation is under control because we don't have an increased number of the cases, and just we have now 16 cases infected already by COVID-19, and all of them from the people who came from outside of Gaza Strip, and they are now in the medical centers under control. And there is no, let me say, dangerous situation in the middle of the cities or villages of the Gaza Strip. But we are afraid of if the cases or the corona or the virus COVID-19 spread from inside the communities. Our sectors, our health sector is not, let me say, is not suitable to receive a huge number of cases and to manage the medical waste. But now, or since maybe 2 months from the beginning of the crisis, as ICA, Environment Quality Authority in Palestine, we published and developed a protocol, a specific protocol to manage the medical waste produced from every centers or quarantine centers or medical intervention centers. Let me say, this protocol published and circulated for every parties related to the COVID-19 medical waste management, and this protocol is obligatory to be followed by everybody from the beginning of the production to the end as disposing strategies, and we will elaborate it in more details in the coming minutes.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for sharing your views on the Palestine condition. Okay, we move on to the second question. This is the current situation in Malaysia. In Malaysia, we have like Redicare, Agenta, Medivest, and One Medicare Sdn Bhd, which are concessionaires appointed by the government to manage the clinical waste from public medical facilities. On the other hand, we have like Quality Alam Sdn Bhd and Future NRG Sdn Bhd to manage all the clinical waste from private hospitals and clinics. I'm not sure whether other countries have also specific companies for a specific cluster or not. But my question is that, what is the most common method used for medical waste disposal that could cause least pollution to the environment? Maybe we go for Engineer Amar first for situation in Malaysia.
Okay, all right. So thank you so much, Doctor. What we are doing so far is that the government has already given the mandate to all the concessionaires to handle clinical waste in respective regions. So we have northern region, central region, and the southern region. And since Malaysia has East and West Malaysia, so back in the the Eastern Malaysia, we have 2 companies there to settle that. So altogether, we have about 7 companies to settle all the clinical waste total in Malaysia. So in that due sense, I would say that, the government way of doing this sort of segmentization is very effective to ensure that different region settles their own different kind of waste. So that's why I think it's very good that, in certain region, the waste are being contained within that region without having a transboundary effect. So that's one point. And the second point is that right now we have from these concessionaires, we have about 12 incinerators altogether. used for the management of the COVID-19 and also all the clinical waste that we have been doing more than 2 decades now. So what this means is that, one, the technology is proven. And secondly, we have been doing it so efficiently that I think, based on the previous episode of SARS, if I could recall back, this pandemic that we are facing nowadays, our concessionaires and our companies in Malaysia is already ready for all this, this type of thing. Although they do not want it, but this type of thing happens, and they have to face it, and they have faced it very, very well. And we are privileged to serve all these companies, and through my communication with all these companies, and we have seen that they are being very busy nowadays, despite what's happening. But it's sensible enough to say that they are busy because they have to manage all this type of waste. And these are the kind of frontliners that we are very hopeful for them to work in this kind of pandemic at the moment. And because of that, these companies are to ensure that all the waste are being treated effectively. Like Dr. mentioned just now, we have the incinerators must have the efficiency of 99.999% of destruction and removal efficiency. So not just in terms of the burning of this clinical waste or this medical waste, but we have to ensure also that all this burning process is being done in a controlled manner, which means that safe from COVID-19 and also safe for the environment. So altogether is a complete package of making sure that we safeguard all elements altogether. Okay, so in Malaysia, like I mentioned, we have the concessionaires, we have the private companies managing all this, and I think it's a good move for any country to make sure that there is a particular entity to dispose of these clinical waste effectively and efficiently. And just to share with everyone also, not just incinerator that we should focus on. Okay, the other element is that after the burning process, we would get all this what we call it inert carbon, and this inert carbon is, what are we doing to that? I mean, basically, Dr. Muhammad Bashir mentioned about we can have a co-processing in that event. Yes, we can do that, and at the same time, what has been doing so far, I mean, Malaysia has been doing so far, is that we landfill that. Okay, which means that from that burning process, we create the ash, and from that ash, we send it to a secured landfill. Okay, not just any type of landfill. We designate that certain type of waste, which is now is a clinical waste or scheduled waste. We send out these type of waste from the incinerator to this secured landfill, as we call it. Okay, why secured landfill? Of course, the design of the secured landfill is much more protective in terms of its layer, in terms of its pollution control measure when it comes to leachate generation and so forth. So this is where I think Malaysia has been doing so well. Besides the SOP that we have, and again, audit must be done. As Advocate mentioned just now, without audit, nothing happens. So what Malaysia has been doing well is that we have SOPs, we have auditing programs that we must conduct in order to ensure that the licenses is being given to these respective companies that we are looking at, which is the 7 companies, to ensure that they work at the SOP that was mentioned, so that everything will be taken care of. Okay, so that's my point of view.
Okay, thank you, Arama. Can you add on, Dr. Muhammad Bashir, on the Malaysia scenario?
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, let me clarify, for the effective way of managing medical waste, we should start from the source. So we have source separation, then source classification, right? And after classification, they have post handling, which is pre-treatment before disposal. And then after disposal, we have post disposal. So at the site, as Dr. Saud said, at the beginning, at the site, there is very important action should be taken in terms of separation and classification. And now this is a challenge, because normally we will separate those kind of material, maybe like masks, gloves, like non-infectious material, but now things change. So maybe during this duration, we need to reclassify, re-specify those kind of waste, and to remanage the proper way of management. So, okay, we know that there is different way of treatment of medical waste, and actually this is based on the scenario or based on the classification. For example, we have chemical treatment, we have incineration, burning, we have autoclave, and microwave and etc. So yes, incineration can remove 90 or can reduce it by 99%. There's one question here. We know if we don't handle incineration properly, then this is also potential for risk, where incineration can produce dioxin and furan, right? So this is another environmental issue, which is create another burden on another cost. We know that the environmental control for the incinerator cost almost similar cost like the operation or the capital budget of the incinerator itself. So we have to think also more creative way about the cost in this manner. But I would say still incinerator is very effective. And in this condition, for those countries have massive production, they can use other type of what you call it, furnace from the industry, which is using furnace under 1,100 degree. And I will agree with Mr. Ammar. In Malaysia, things very effective because SOP related to medical schedule waste is very clear. I just will read for you about this electronic schedule waste management for the health health waste in Malaysia. Improper handling and disposal of clinical waste is a crime under Section 34P1A of Environmental Quality Act 1974, which carries a maximum of 5 years jail and a fine of not more than 500,000 ringgit, which is 100,000 USD. So SOP is clear, but I will raise one question. Now, this is about health and medical waste. What about now domestic waste? Because domestic waste now is contaminated with some medical sanitizer and etc. of kind, other kind of medical waste for suspected cases, not confirmed cases, and this has also become infectious waste or medical waste. Yes, is another issue. So now we are not only handling the traditional medical waste. Now the normal domestic waste on those countries with high record of COVID-19 become also questionable. So shall we continue handle it as normal domestic waste? This is a really big question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to discuss that on different question. From explanation from IR Ahmad and also Dr. Muhammad Bashir, it seems that Malaysia is quite full equipped with the current situation. What about in India, Advocate Anil Soed? Can you share your experience in India on the facilities and the disposal method of the medical waste?
See, as of now, if I look at the documents from WHO, if I look at the documents from various sources, COVID-19 and the manner in which SARS wastage was dealt with is almost identical. The same way it is being treated as infectious as SARS was treated, and almost identical process has been suggested for disposal of COVID-19 medical waste. Somehow, I always get suspicious about COVID-19 itself. If I go through the process of treatment, first, the positive patient is brought in, sanitized, then admitted in the hospital. Now, the doctor or paramedical staff, they are wearing all the protective equipments like cap, this mask, glasses, entire cover, then you have face shield also, then you have shoe cover also, and there is no way anything can penetrate and get into your own system. Now, if we look at how the person gets infected, as per medical literature circulated all around, it is through coughing, sneezing, or passing on the virus which sits on inside your screen. Okay, when you are all protected from entire this COVID-19 so-called virus, then what is it which is infecting the paramedics and the doctors, and how? Because when I am fully protected and I am taking all the precautions, then how there can be infection? So there has to be something more behind it. Now, unless you assess that, we'll keep believing that this is COVID, 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 and we'll continue to treat this as a particular process, expensive process, without knowing the reality. Now, this all halagulla has been created. COVID-19. There are deaths also. In US, I hear that for each COVID patient, hospital gets $3,700, and if patient goes on ventilator, he gets $17,000. Hospital gets $17,000. So every death goes as COVID. Now you look at the history of the countries wherever this COVID is there. What happened to other diseases? Other diseases have come down or disappeared. What about normal deaths? So to me, I am a little suspicious about all this. I am being very frank and upfront with you all.
Maybe COVID-19 is a turning point for us to make a better or improvise our SOPs or guidelines and so on, for us to embrace maybe more pandemic or crisis in the future. It's like a turning point for us to wake up call for us, for example.
That's fair.
Just for us to improve our system to make it better and also prepared for worst scenario.
To me, at time it looks more of a business gimmick than a health gimmick created by a few pharma and media. Because I am not finding today doctors recommending any treatment for or any test for heart or for any other disease. Today doctors are not accepting any patient, also still those patients are surviving. I am also a patient. I don't go to doctor and doctor doesn't accept. So
Okay, maybe
somehow I have a feeling that there is something much more behind it, what is visible, what is being told to all of us. China, nobody is trusting today. And China is coming out with the waste treatment also, because they must have been preparing for quite some time, if we go by the hearsays. For others, it's just like, bolt out of the blue. So,
okay,
bolt out of the blue.
let's hear what Dr. Ahmed has to say from Palestine.
Okay. Hi again. Do you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Your voice is slow.
Yeah, we can hear you. Dr. Ahmed, please go on.
Okay. Okay, in the Gaza Strip, we are dealing with the waste or the medical waste, but as you know, and as Dr. Muhammad said, there is a regular and specific routes or procedures have been applied in the worldwide to handle the medical waste in the regular time. But we have a policies in the Gaza Strip and the strategies or the plans, but there is no way to apply it accurately on the ground because of the political and economical or economic constraints that I said. Nowadays, the responsible parties to manage the medical waste in the Gaza Strip are three sides: Ministry of Health, the responsible of production, collection, and classification of the waste from the medical and clinical centers, and the quarantine centers also. This responsibility is mostly handled by private sectors, small private sectors as workers collecting the waste from the medical centers and the quarantine centers. And the third party is the
Dr.
municipality.
Ahmed, Dr.
Yes.
Ahmed, what about transportation as well as storage? Because we know that because the number is quite increasing, the medical waste, and the maximum storage time of the medical waste at hospitals from COVID-19 normally is for 24 hours. We have to collect it within 24 hours. Is there any
Yes.
problems in terms of transportation as well as storage?
Yes, the steps of the medical waste handling or management now in the during the emergency and according to the protocol that we published as ECA, Environment Quality Authority, from the beginning to the end. The collected waste from the medical is separated by two parts. The first one is the most dangerous one from the clinical or medical intervention centers. And the second one is from the quarantine centers, which suspected cases could be infected by corona or COVID-19. And the colors of the packages is different. The first one is yellow and the second one is red. The packages or the bags is very strong by polyethylene plastic nylon, and two packages used for one bill. A third of these bills are filled by waste because to prevent the damaging or the or the destruction of these bags. And all of these bags collected, gathered by workers. In the beginning of the crisis, ECA, in cooperation with Ministry of Health, trained specific staff, workers, let me say, by very clear instructions related to the physical distancing from your families and how to apply or to implement the hygienic practices to protect yourself as the first step. Then how to handle or how to deal with these bags, labeled bags, clearly distinguished bags, which gathered in the center of the medical centers. And then the responsibility transferred to the municipalities. By after the Ministry of Health finished their work, gathered the medical periodically, daily. The protocol said clearly this waste cannot be wait more than 24 hours in the summer and 80 or 48 hours in the winter because of the chemical and physical reactions to prevent the development of these pollutants, let me say, or medical or hazardous waste. Specific precautions and control measures have been generalized and circulated for all parties, even the people who work inside these centers, how to gather these wastes, your gloves, your masks, your hats, your clothes, if you wear it, and to be followed obligatory from every side. But as I said, the financial or the economic situation is too deteriorated in the Gaza, and these parties, the municipalities, we have 21 municipalities in the Gaza Strip dealing with 3 central landfill or dumping site. It's not safe or are not incinerator landfills because of the closure of the border and the political issues and the siege perpetrated against the Palestinian people since 13 years ago by the Israeli occupation. I would like to say something very important. We cannot apply let me say, the optimum treatment procedures to deal with medical waste, as the doctors or our friends said, using incinerators. We don't have the full capacity of electricity in the Gaza Strip. We don't see the electricity more than 6 or 8 hours per a day. So the energy and fuel consumption is very or highly cost to the government or the local government in the Gaza, and there is no way to use let me say, the autoclave or the treatment to deneutralization of this medical. Just we use the dumping or the landfilling of this. After collection, the municipalities specified vehicles, special or specific vehicles by label. These vehicles sterilized or disinfected by chlorine as a chemical material has been used or all the time to sterilize these vehicles. And the workers, let me say, already have received a suitable training and capacity building procedure in the beginning of the crisis to increase their skills and increase their experience how to deal with this waste. And a specific route, specific paths of these vehicles has been determined for every municipality, and the specific time to be these waste to be transported from the centers to the dumping site. Then, after the collection of these waste and the vehicle has been filled by this waste already and covered by specific cover, then transported or transferred to the landfills. As I said, 3 landfills in the Gaza Strip. All of these landfills exceed their capacity since years ago, but without suitable financial support and without funds or needed funds, the situation become more and more complicated. And there is no strategic, let me say, development in all sectors, and the environment is one of them. The dumping site, do you hear me?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Okay, let me complete this last point. The dumping site already, the digging in the center or the middle of these dumping sites, a big hole to receive this medical waste periodically, and then one layer of a clay, 1 meter of a layer of a clay, put it on the above or on the top of these bales of medical waste to cover it, and then it will receive another amount of this waste in the second or another day or every day. This is the most economist way or procedure that we can apply in the Gaza Strip to deal with this waste, let me say. In addition to that, we are facing the challenge of medical waste management from years ago, before coronavirus and before COVID-19 crisis. Also, we don't have a special or a specific route medical waste management control procedure, let me say, applied on the ground. We have a policies and we have a plans, a clear plans, and we develop these, let me say, procedures on the papers. But on the ground, the situation is very difficult and very complicated. We are now trying, and all of the governments, all of the local government parties cope, or let me say fight to prevent the spreading of these virus inside the communities. And we are trying to control by obligatory instructions and let me say limitations, highly difficult limitation on the borders to quarantine the people who came from outside, and the cases, the infected cases already we found in the Gaza Strip since the beginning of the crisis is from the outside of the Gaza Strip. till to now, the communities are protected, and the waste from the home, let me say home scale waste, is managed by the regular routes or the regular procedure that have been followed from.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ahmed. I believe that all the countries, despite the differences in the precautions and also all the measures that they apply, we are trying to fight our best with this COVID-19 medical issues within our own context and suitability. So I will move on to the next question. We have seen many changes on the environment due to this pandemic. Can you highlight on the pros and cons of COVID-19 crisis, specifically on medical waste sector? Maybe we can start with Dr. Mohammed Bashir.
Okay, thank you very much for your question. I think this is very important question, because I would like always to say COVID-19 is 1 month, 2 months, 1 year, 2 year, what else, but it's not permanent, right? Life will go back normal. But what we learn from this one, in terms of problem, yes, we can see, especially for medical waste, there is a huge quantity of medical waste. There are problem even with domestic waste, or rather it's can classify as domestic or hazardous waste. But now we learn something very important. It's very important for each country to have risk management team. Normally, the risk management team deal with the disaster, like earthquake, right, typhoon, and etc. Now, each Ministry of Health should join and contribute risk or what we call high risk health team as well. This office should be responsible about to take action for those kind of circumstances like what we have now. Of course, we need to think about waste collection digitalization, right? So this one should go now online to track all the vehicles moving, collecting the medical waste. So this one should be digitalized now. IoT can help a lot to make the priority for the collection of this kind of waste. Of course, when we have the risk management system for the health sector or even waste management sector, we can know how to reschedule waste collection, when and where to add more vehicles for the collection. And we can give accurate advice on time for when we can recycle waste, when we should stop. For example, now, if we talk about a place like Wuhan or maybe New York, where the whole city almost, the infection rate was very high. So even domestic waste should be classified not as non-domestic waste. We should not recycle. So public are not aware, but from medical point of view, from environmental management point of view, recycling activity at that particular zone should be stopped. So who will say to stop, to continue? What kind of waste activity to continue? Even we talk about SOB are there. Yes, SOB is there, but SOB should be changed under risk condition and those kind of circumstances to help the people and to protect them, including the factor I'm talking about, which is recycling and so on. So one of the main issue, waste collection is important. We need to find an emergency team for health as well as like we talk about disaster and so on. And one more factor I would like to highlight, which is basically the innovation. It's important now to think about innovation and public training. For example, reuse of the single-use personal equipment by the public. We have to teach the public. The public don't know how to recycle their protection equipment. And in terms of strategic research, we are a researcher. You can see maybe 4 of us academicians, right? So sustainable waste management, including medical waste management, and to link it with the circular economy and risk management. This is very critical need now. So we have to think about how to make our medical waste more sustainable, linked with the circular economy, and to reduce the risk and to increase the human protection. Yeah, of course, I will give one example now. Based on my review, there is one example of the innovation. In USA, they have this now recycling of N95 mask by the hydroxide. So this is one of the research that is going on. So now, rather than say all will go for burning, what about recycling? Which item can be recycled? This is very important. Whatever the COVID condition, whatever is behind, when it started, when it's going to end, we are human under risk. Maybe after 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 100 years, another diseases or another problem will come. So emergency response should be fast, accurate, and in order. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Muhammad Bashir did highlight that we have to consider the health risk management team for waste management, which is quite crucial to consider or to think on every aspect to improvise whatever needed to fight these medical issues. What about Insinyur Amar? I think you have to turn on your microphone.
Okay, can you hear me now? Sorry. Okay, sorry, I forgot. I was too anxious to talk. Okay, so when it comes to what we have done so far, I think Dr. Bashir have already spoken out very clearly on the pros and cons of what we should do and so forth. I just like to add in one small point when it comes to what we have experienced and what we should learn from this pandemic. So I think what we have learned so far, although we are not ready to receive this kind of, increment of waste, which is 70% in Malaysia, is that it would test us regarding about the capacity that we have right now. That we have, which means that whatever incinerators that we have in Malaysia, we would be able to see whether our capacity is in dire need of increment or in expansion or not. So because of that, I think one thing that we have learned is that we have, although there's an increment in 70%, but our capacity is still there to support that. Which means that if there is another pandemic, which is in the future, of course we don't want it. So we would be able to see whether the increment of the population, for example, plus this pandemic would be able to support the existing plants or not. So that's why I think, although we are not ready, but it gives us the mandate to think and to see and evaluate whether our tonnage right now or our plant capacity to basically treat and dispose this kind of waste is sufficient or not. So it gives us a kind of window frame to ensure that all the plant operators, in the event that they want to make an expansion, they have to ensure that they take this consideration as well, so that the capacity of each of the plant is not at par with the current capacity that they are receiving. They must have a gap or a leniency to make sure that if anything surge or any surge happens based on any cases whatsoever, then they will be able to support the demand of the waste disposal criteria. So because of that, I just want to add one more point from Dr. Muhammad Bashir, is that Malaysia has been doing this, what we call it, electronic, we call it as e-Swiss, which is Electronic Waste Information System. Besides the IoT, that I would very much agree with what Dr. Bashir mentioned just now. If we have the lorries, it will be much more secure in terms of the what we call it, waste disposal, in terms of its source to its site where it's going to be treated. Yes, but in fact that we in Malaysia, we have exactly the system to ensure that the waste that's been generated from its source right now is in the hospital or in any sort of establishments. It's been sent to a designated or a known source which has been approved. And to get the approval of building up this facility is not that easy in Malaysia, because you have to go through a process of environmental impact assessment, application of licenses for installation of air pollution control and burners and so forth. So it's a tedious process that we have been doing for so many years. And I can tell you, minimum, you would spend about 1 year to actually get the approval before you can build up the plant of, merely about 1.5 years mostly. So it will take about 2.5 years to have this window frame of expansion. So in summary, I would say that because of this 2.5 years of expansion period, what we have learned in this episode is that we should be able to predict whatever increment right now. Increment that I mean is not just based on the pandemic. Increment I mean is based on the increment of population. Just want to share with everyone, in Malaysia, we have an increment or an increase in waste of about 10% each year. This is based on the population growth as well, because right now the insurance and the healthcare scheme is so easy for everyone to get, and to be able to get this medication at the private hospital and so forth. So that's why this to seek medication help in the healthcare establishments are very common nowadays, okay, compared to the ones before. So that's why I think because of that, due to the demand, hospitals are blooming up, especially private ones. And because of that as well, we are creating more waste. And more waste, like I mentioned, because of the growth of the population, we have to also incorporate the pandemic, situation. Right now, we are assuming 17%. So we have to put another, let's say, 20 or 25% to make sure that the gap, or basically the leniency of all our operators of all the facilities are equipped and adequate to ensure that we can safely treat all these waste altogether.
Okay, thank you. I think the time is up. I think we have to have come to the end of the session. I think all countries are facing similar challenges, and it is critical that additional implementation of medical waste management systems are put in place to help to reduce the further spread of any diseases or any pandemic issues or crises in the future. And I would like to thank all the experts for your participation in this forum today. And hopefully all the information given by our panelists has clarified some of the big issues that we have in the medical waste sector. So thank you, everyone.
I think Dr. Advocate Anil Sood, you wanted to say something. You just wrote. We are out of time, so if you can, you will have to unmute, sir. You will have to unmute yourself. So we are out of time.
And unmute them.
Please unmute yourself. You wanted to say
COVID-19 has proven one thing, that Indian way of life was very good, because we never used to go for tissue paper and not. We always used to wash our hands. So it was never a new subject for India. Yes, the environment COVID-19 has also proven that you cannot, you cannot destroy the nature, and nature, if you play with the nature will take its revenge, which is happening. Thirdly, as Rashid and Bashir, they said, we'll have to keep in mind futuristic planning. We can't plan for today, because whatever plan we start executing, the data is about 2 years old. By the time plan is ready, data is 4 years old. By the time pandemic comes, again, as Rashid said, we are chock-a-block. So futuristic planning we'll have to have everywhere, so that if there is a surge, we are able to meet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Ahmed, you also want to say something?
Okay, one more, two things very important to be taken into consideration for everybody and everywhere and in the world. What happened is, and let me say by computer language, is formatting of the word and uploading a new Windows, changing their culture, their habits toward hygienic practices as people one by one, and the physical distancing between the people. All of these issues should be taken in the learning education level and taken into consideration to develop the people, let me say, culture toward how to protect ourselves more and more by applying suitable hygienic practices. The first one. And the second one, let me say, the chemicals and materials that we use to sterilize our life, or to disinfect our life. Nowadays, we face many of these vague, let me say, materials which not usable or not useful for us. The controlling of these issues is very important to be taken into consideration, and to be controlled well by the governments. Many of issues have been changed completely from the beginning to the end. The management of emergency, three pillars of this emergency, from the let me say, the preparedness phase, and the responsible phase, and the recovering phase, is not same as whole. The preparedness is not same to the response, and nowadays we are facing the response, how to respond for this emergency. So the plans which we built up during the last years, we checked all of them, if them is, or they can be applied as we wished or not. I would like to thank everybody, and this is in addition to what my friends said accurately.
Thank you, Dr. Aslena. We can conclude the session now. So, a special request to all our policymakers: as much you have taken the issue of fighting coronavirus seriously, take the management or recycling of the medical waste equally. Otherwise, this will bring a recycle of the disease to the society, because in India, only 40 lakh waste workers, waste pickers, are directly connected and exposed to this crisis. If they again become the carrier of this disease, India can never fight this. Thank you so much. Keep watching.